Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is going to be another episode of What I Watched Recently, a recurring series on my channel where I talk about all the movies and TV shows I have watched in the recent months. It's mostly gonna be murder mysteries and or historical dramas, cause that's just what I like to watch. Listen, I am a 24-year-old woman now, and I feel like I've gotten to the stage of my life where I just know what I like, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to consume. I know what I like, I know my own tastes, and I just watch or read what I want. So that's pretty much what you're gonna hear about in this video. Let's dive right into it. Oh, first, I watched Glass Onion, the sequel to Knives Out. I was really looking forward to this, and it kind of felt a bit like a disappointment. I really enjoyed Knives Out, and this one was just a little bit over the top for my taste. Granted, it was trying to be over the top. It was not going for realism, but there were parts of the movie where I was just like, really? Like, this is really happening right now? Are you kidding me? So the plot of this movie is that Benoit Blanc, our sleuth from the first movie, is invited to this murder mystery party on a billionaire's Greek island. This billionaire, played by Edward Norton, is clearly meant to be like an Elon Musk sort of guy, and his character is not at all subtle. I think an issue I have with this movie is that it's making social commentary, but it's really hitting you over the head with the social commentary. I think Knives Out had social commentary in it, but it was a little more subtle about it. And this movie, I feel like, doesn't display faith in the viewer that they'll be able to pick up on the subtlety, so it's just clonking you over the head with the social commentary, and none of the characters have any depth or complexity. They're caricatures, basically. So as you probably suspected, over the course of this trip, the fake murder actually turns into a real murder. Someone in attendance at this party dies for real, and so Blanc is going to get to the bottom of it. Actually, where the mystery in this film went, I enjoyed that part. First of all, the person who died was not the person who I was expecting to die. I was watching being like, oh, 100%, this is the character who's gonna drop dead, and then it was someone else entirely, so that surprised me. And then, I know there was a twist in this movie that was controversial. Personally, I kind of enjoyed it. Basically, this thing happens that recontextualizes the events we've already watched, and so then we're going back and re-examining those events with a new lens, and that, I thought, was really fun. The reason I didn't love this movie is I just think it was totally lacking subtlety, and there were parts where I was rolling my eyes because I was like, seriously, is this really happening right now? I mean, the thing with the Mona Lisa, that was just ridiculous. Like, you know, I think there was good things in this movie, but to me, it was trying too hard with the social commentary thing. I think, you know, the writing could have had a little more faith in the intellectual abilities of their viewers. It was too obvious, too on the nose. So while I enjoyed the mystery part, just the climax of the movie was freaking ridiculous. Next, I finally watched Enola Holmes, both the first film and the second film. And actually, all in all, I really enjoyed these. These are historical mystery films set in Victorian-era London, following the teenage sister of Sherlock Holmes, who is trying to make it on her own as a private detective. I didn't know if I was going to like these movies because based on things I'd seen about it on social media, I was worried that it was going to fall into some of my most hated historical fiction tropes. I will link that video. I was worried it was going to be like, ooh, corsets, they're so oppressive. I'm a woman who talks like I'm a 21st century feminist, even though it's the 1880s. And I was worried it was just gonna be eye roll inducing. And there were times where the suspension of disbelief has to be very high because the character of Enola Holmes, she has like some skills and abilities that just don't really track with Victorian era society. Like her mother taught her, I think it was jujitsu. Because, you know, every Victorian lady just knows jujitsu. Like, that was super common back then. And there are just other moments that are kind of silly, but kind of similar to Glass Onion. I think the film's aware that it's silly. It's not going for straight historical realism. But, if you're able to look past those sometimes slightly cringe moments, I think these films are actually pretty entertaining and pretty fun. There were moments where I was again being like, really? Like, this is really happening right now? Because it's not going for historical realism. However, all in all, while I was watching these, I had a good time. I had some laughs along the way, and they were really enjoyable movies. I think I liked the second one better than the first because what they did with Moriarty in the second film, if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. I loved it. I loved how that storyline went, and I need them to make a third Enola Holmes movie with Moriarty in it because that character, I am obsessed with the twist that they introduced, and I just loved it. It was so good. I also appreciated that they didn't drag out the romantic storyline for too long. I think they actually could have dragged it out slightly more, but what I appreciate about it is one of my pet peeves is when writers think that a strong female character can't have a romantic relationship and still be strong. So I loved the speech that Enola's mother gave her about, hey, it's great to be strong and independent, but it's also great to accept help sometimes and recognize the kinds of good people you have in your life and let them help you. I thought that was a great speech, and I really appreciated it that they're not making Enola do the whole strong, independent woman who don't need no man thing, because like you can have a romantic relationship and still be your own strong individual person. Like you don't need another person to complete you, but having another person who cares about you and is there for you can make your life better. So I did really appreciate that aspect of the movies as well. I hope they will make some more movies in this series with lots of Moriarty. I just love where they went with that storyline. And I also love an excuse to look at Henry Cavill's face because he's very handsome. Next, I watched another Netflix historical mystery film, The Pale Blue Eye, starring Christian Bale. This is set in the 1800s, and Christian Bale plays this, I think he's a retired private detective. His name is Augustus Landor, and he's really isolated himself since the death of his daughter and either the death or abandonment of his wife. I don't really remember. However, he is asked to come to the military academy at West Point to solve a recent suspicious death there. Over the course of his investigation, a student becomes his sidekick in this murder investigation, and that student's name is Edgar Allan Poe. You might have heard of him. I went into this movie with no expectations. I just saw it on Netflix and I thought it sounded interesting, so my mom and I watched it together. All in all, I thought it was really enjoyable. Definitely not life-changing. This is not going to be one of my new all-time favorite movies, but if it sounds interesting to you and you're looking for something to do one Friday night, I would recommend watching this movie. It was an entertaining, historical, gothic murder mystery. Definitely a bit dark. If you're looking for something very lighthearted and cozy, probably not the right film for you. It definitely is a bit darker thematically than something like Enola Holmes, for instance. But I thought it was a good movie. There were 2 reveals in this film, and I am definitely not going to spoil them. I will say the first reveal I thought was very obvious, like I saw it coming. But then the writer sucker punched me with a second reveal that I did not see coming. But in hindsight, there definitely was foreshadowing for it. So that was a good reveal, because once that twist came, I was seeing the earlier events of the film in a new light. That was definitely an enjoyable reveal, even if the first one was a bit obvious. Next, I watched season 3 of Miss Scarlet and the Duke. If you've watched my previous TV and film review videos, you know that I adore this show. It's one of my favorite shows that's currently on television at the moment. This is another historical mystery set in 1880s Victorian London, and the main character is a female private detective trying to make it in this male-dominated world, and she is sometimes helped and sometimes hindered by her childhood best friend, who is a detective inspector at the Scotland Yard police force. The two of them have this absolutely delicious will they or won't they thing going on, and the amount of time I spend thinking about how much I want the two of them to kiss is honestly embarrassing, but I just love them. And I want them to confess their feelings and be together forever. Like, OTP, like, guys, come on, you're torturing me here. Just kiss, just kiss. I'm dying, like, please. This show is just so fun. If you like something like Enola Holmes, definitely watch this show. I've also compared it to the Veronica Speedwell mysteries by Deanna Raybourn before. The two of them, in my opinion, have very similar vibes, and I love both. So if you're a fan of those books, I think you would like this show, or vice versa. It's just a really fun historical mystery show, really fun to watch, some good dialogue, moments of humor, and I love all of the main characters. I think they're all really well written. The thing that I will say is, when season 4 comes out, I really need the two main characters, William and Eliza, to make some progress in their relationship. Because like I said, they've had this will they or won't they thing going on. And while I love a delicious slow burn, both of them are so stubborn. And I need the two of them in the next season to actually do some internal reflection about their feelings for each other and what they want for their futures, because I feel like we need to make some sort of progress in order to prevent the storyline from becoming frustrating. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I watched some videos about writing slow burn romances, and something that was mentioned, which really resonated with me, is that when you're writing a slow burn, the characters need to have rolling obstacles, which basically means the same obstacle can't be standing in their way for an extended period of time, because then the reader or the viewer will get frustrated by the character's inability to make things work. So if you want to delay a romantic relationship for a long time, you have to come up with different obstacles, so they can move past obstacle 1, but then obstacle 2 comes along, and then obstacle 3. You get what I'm saying? And the thing is, I feel like the two characters haven't really been making progress. It's sort of been the same thing standing in their way for 3 years, and I need the two of them to do some soul searching. Otherwise, I'm going to get frustrated with them. And I think these two definitely could work something out and compromise, but we haven't seen that yet, and I just need the two of them to quit being so stubborn, do a little soul searching, and then make out. Please, thank you. I do love this show though. I love a good bantering sleuthing couple. What can I say? It's one of my favorite tropes, and I eat it up every time. And then I finally watched the adaptation of Death Comes to Pemberley. So I read the book by P.D. James, I think in 2021, and I said that I really wanted to watch the adaptation. However, it was available at my library on a DVD. My DVD player is not hooked up, so I really didn't want to have to bother with that. Finally, though, I just decided I was going to pay for the Masterpiece PBS subscription on Amazon Prime so I could watch Death Comes to Pemberley and a couple other shows. And I'm glad that I finally watched this. I thought it was all in all pretty enjoyable. So this book and show is basically a murder mystery Jane Austen fan fiction. It's a sequel of Pride and Prejudice. A married Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are throwing a ball at Mr. Darcy's estate, Pemberley, but then Elizabeth's sister Lydia shows up uninvited, screaming that Mr. Wickham has just been murdered. I believe when I read the book, it was just a 3-star for me. I loved the concept, but the way the author wrote some of the characters just didn't match up with how I personally viewed them. So I think I would say I liked the miniseries better. I think it just kind of didn't have some of the same problems that I had with the book. And all in all, it was a fun watch. I loved Lydia, who's played by Jenna Coleman in this. She's such a great actress and also like just so adorable, sidebar, but I think she's just really, really pretty. And I also loved Mrs. Bennet. The two of them were just a comedy duo in this. I wish they had more screen time because just watching the two of them, I was giggling to myself at their antics and how the two of them play off each other. It was great. I also liked how the Elizabeth in this did slightly more investigating, I believe, than she did in the book, because one of the biggest problems I had with the book was basically Mr. Darcy was going off to investigate the crime and Elizabeth was staying home asking him to update her later. And in my opinion, that is not what Elizabeth Bennet Darcy would do, okay? If a murder took place at her home, she would 100% want to solve that crime. She is an obstinate, headstrong girl, remember? So she would hike up her skirt and be like, Fitzwilliam, I am going with you. I am going investigating. You are not leaving me at home. That's her personality, all right? She is not just gonna sit around and let all the men do the crime solving for her, okay? That's not Elizabeth. And finally, another thing that I've watched with my Masterpiece PBS subscription is Vienna Blood. I watched all 3 seasons of this show. This show is, as you probably guessed, set in Vienna in the early 1900s. I believe season 1 takes place in the year 1907. And we're mainly following these 2 characters. Max Lieberman is a psychologist and a disciple of Freud, and he ends up sort of forming an unofficial partnership with Inspector Reinhardt of the Leopoldstadt police. The 2 of them are kind of like low-key a comedy duo. The way the 2 of them play off each other and this tentative friendship they form is really amusing. There were many times while watching the show I smiled to myself at the witty dialogue. And I was watching with my mom and she literally like laughs out loud watching this show. Definitely, if you love some witty banter, this delivers. I love a good witty banter in my mystery. Just if it has murder and banter, just sign me up. I'm in. I wouldn't say this show is hard-boiled, but it definitely is slightly darker than something like Miss Scarlet and the Duke or Enola Holmes. Some of the cases definitely deal with very serious topics, and also the show is a bit more sexual than you usually get on PBS. It's kind of funny. This show airs on the BBC in the UK and then on PBS in the United States. And since I was watching it via the PBS subscription, whenever there was nudity, they would just blur it out. Like, no, we can't show that on PBS, all right? It's gonna offend all the rich 70-year-olds watching who give us money. Also, the character of Max Lieberman is Jewish, so the show does at times deal with anti-Semitism, which obviously, if you know your history, was only going to rise in Austria from here. So that is another thing the show talks about. The thing that I didn't really like about this show was the sort of love triangle Max finds himself involved in. I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but one of the women he was romantically involved with, I felt like the two of them had no chemistry whatsoever, and he was saying like, oh, I'm in love with you, and I was watching the show being like, dude, why? Like, bitch, why are you in love with this woman? You don't know this woman. I was sort of happy to see that in season 3 they dropped this love triangle storyline, but at the same time it was also kind of weird because they just drop one of the female characters with no explanation. I don't think they ever said what happened to her. She just stopped being a character on the show. And nobody mentioned where she went, mentioned her name. It's like she just disappeared and all the other characters had amnesia and forgot they knew her. So while I was glad that this storyline was over with because I never really liked it, it was also weird that they just provide no explanation for where she went. All in all, a really good show if you're as into historical mysteries as I am. So everyone, that is everything I have watched recently. I am going to keep my Masterpiece PBS subscription on Amazon Prime for another month or two, so if you have any recommendations for things that I should watch on there, definitely let me know in the comments. Any, really good period dramas, murder mysteries, historical murder mysteries, do let me know and I will check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Why don't you comment the television emoji if you are still watching? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a marvelous rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.